She's a hot one today on this Tuesday morning, July 14th, 2026. Welcome. It's another beautiful morning up north. And this is a little personal project from me involving the work I do for Up North News, covering the race for Wisconsin's next governor, which we're going to know after a couple of key dates here. Being Tuesday, July 14th, it means we are 28 days away from the primary election. 4 weeks from today, add 12 more, and you get 16 weeks or 112 days until the November general election coming up in mere seconds. The Wisconsin Politics Group chat with Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area and Dr. Kristin Lyerly of the Dr. Kristin Lyerly Show. We'll find out all about that. First, for all of the stuff that I mentioned from over the weekend, including being up in Oneida and Vilas counties for that candidate forum, I forgot to thank them for the gift, and I have to bring in my friends Dan Shafer and Kristin Lyerly for this one. Coffee mug, a Hodag coffee mug.
Aw, that's
Now,
so great.
I mean, look at the likeness. How nice is that? I hardly had to move for them to capture that thing. So thank you again to those folks for allowing me to moderate your forum up there. Brewers are on the All-Star break until Friday. Then they start a 9-game homestand against Miami first this weekend. And for our daily newsletter at Up North News, sign up at upnorthnewswi.com. And I am advised it just came out and that it includes can't miss day trips across Wisconsin, which is kind of our bread and butter at Up North News. We love the day trips. And, of course, staying cool during this heat wave.
You're always cool, Pat.
And you're always hot. I don't see, it doesn't work. Anyway.
Thanks.
Hey.
Ding.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Politics Group chat, where it's my turn to host this merry band of Wisconsin political nerds. Unfortunately, Kate Duffy from Motherhood for Good cannot be with us this week. She's on the road right now, but we do have the opportunity to get recombobulated and then to get healed. The recombobulation comes from Dan Shafer of the Recombobulation area. The healing comes from my second favorite gynecologist, Dr. Kristin Lyerly. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Kreitlow. What do you think we're going to talk about today?
I have some thoughts, but since this is hosted on multiple platforms, I should explain my favorite gynecologist is the one I'm married to. But, you know, can you ever have enough gynos in your life?
Sherry's also my favorite gynecologist.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, we know what we're talking about here. 4 weeks to go till the primary. And, you know, we've had a couple of candidates drop out and endorsed Lieutenant Governor Sara Rodriguez, in part because of some of her straw poll performance and in part because of healthy fundraising numbers, until we realized late Sunday night and into Monday that those numbers were not what they seemed to be. And Monday afternoon, the lieutenant governor took note in a press conference of the timeline that led her to discover huge financial improprieties in the way that her funds have been calculated by her campaign manager / compliance officer. And so that campaign manager was fired Sunday night. And Sara Rodriguez said she's got hundreds of thousands of dollars less than what was reported. And her bank account isn't nearly what she thought it was. And Dan, I'll start with you to kind of tell us more about the timeline, how it started last Tuesday with Sara noticing something that wasn't on TV. But we're going to get into that slash as well, a campaign manager / compliance officer, which is bigger than the treasurer. I mean, you really do the books, you know the books, you've checked the books. Having that in a campaign manager, as Todd Alba noted for us as well online, that is really unheard of, Dan, and that's kind of where this whole timeline seems to best begin.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre that you had the same person doing both of those jobs essentially. But so Sara Rodriguez made this, like you said, she made this announcement on Sunday night. And then in a press conference yesterday afternoon, she kind of walked through the timeline of what that is. So I took a little bit of time yesterday after the press conference to kind of piece together that timeline based on some of the statements that she had made. You can see that on my Facebook and Twitter pages. So Tuesday of last week, so a week ago today, her campaign, Sara Rodriguez campaign, announced that they were making a $1 million television ad buy. And those ads were supposed to begin on Tuesday when the campaign manager made the announcement, but it didn't. And so Sara Rodriguez in the press conference, and I'll quote directly here, she said, "When I saw that this had not happened, I started to get concerned and asked questions." So then Wednesday, her media team flagged that invoices for those TV ad buys and potentially others had not been paid. And so Rodriguez, quoting directly from her at the press conference again here, quote, "I was given excuses by my campaign manager that did not make sense." So Thursday, Rodriguez discovers the total cash on hand for the campaign was not just lower than expected, but far lower than expected, like hundreds of thousands of dollars lower than expected. She said she was not going to put a precise dollar amount on that until they fully review all of the finances, which, considering, makes a whole lot of sense. But hundreds of thousands of dollars less for a statewide gubernatorial campaign, that's a pretty big deal. And so she says on Friday that her campaign assembled, a team of, political compliance, a number of other folks to analyze the reports and figure out what was going on. They recognized that many campaign donations were double counted in the campaign filing report, going back to the previous report 6 months ago as well. So not just, as they're getting ready to meet this reporting deadline that is tomorrow, but they're reviewing this and recognizing that, they don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars from 6 months ago accounted for either. And so they review this, they analyze the data. On Sunday, they come to the decision that the campaign manager screwed up and needs to be fired. And then, we got the press release and everything that happened since,
including her reaction to the news, which here's a little bit of snippet of Sara Rodriguez talking about this, because her campaign manager, Cara Spencer, had been with her for years.
I will tell you that when you work with somebody for as long as I have, it was an enormous shock that this happened. And it took me a little while to believe that these reports were erroneous. But once I was able to look within the system, to look within the bank accounts, to look at the reports that were filed, it was clear that these were egregiously in error and that she needed to be let go. But it is a breach of trust, and it's a breach of trust of myself, and it's a breach of trust of my supporters who are standing here with me today. And that's why I had to make sure that I went as quickly as possible to terminate her as campaign manager.
And so that's why on Monday, yesterday here, when I mentioned hosting a candidate forum in Lake Tomahawk, and then there was a later one in Ashland, how the Rodriguez campaign had called late the night before and said that she would not be able to show up, said there was some kind of an emergency. Kristin, we now know what the emergency was. And again, you and I have both run for Congress. We both know the importance. We all hear about campaign treasurers. Sometimes that's just a name, but it's the compliance team that really puts these forms together, and they are not simple by any way, shape, or form. And yet she said that was her manager's background, was in compliance. I'm still not sure I'd have her do both jobs.
Every campaign is different, and your campaign staff comes to the table with different talents. And I can tell you, when Sara and I both ran for assembly together in 2020, that was where we first met. Cara Spencer was with the Assembly Democratic Campaign Committee, the ADCC. She helped us both with compliance issues from the party perspective. So I myself have worked with Cara. Then she joined Sara's team, so they've been together for 5 years. And to watch Sara in this press conference try to explain how she felt when she realized that this was happening, I could just see, knowing her, I could just see her simmering, and she was holding it together so well, but so many emotions swirling underneath it, because Cara, although it's unusual to have a compliance person who's also your campaign manager, you don't know what the other campaign manager duties are that she was handling, but I can't even imagine how betrayed she must feel, having known her and trusted her for so long. And additionally, as a former candidate, we, and Pat, you know this, the candidate can't be the person who is doing all the compliance stuff. You have to trust your team.
You do.
So for somebody to have been with you for 5 years, campaign staff come and go, they're very ephemeral. For somebody to have been there for 5 years with you and then to have this happen, this is so wild to me.
The exact quote from the Wisconsin Examiner story is from Rodriguez. As we are trying to make sure we have a lean campaign, it made sense for her to do the compliance report since that was her expertise. And that was one thing I had full trust in, adding that Spencer had given her reports on a regular basis and the finances and everything looked fine until last week. And Dan, at no point in here was something nefarious mentioned, which is not to entirely rule out something along the lines of embezzlement. But again, I got no whiff of that. And it certainly seems to be a case of, you can't even say inexperience, just a massive mix up until we learn anything more.
Absolutely. I mean, and I also think, to your point, Kristin, that, you have to trust your folks on your campaign. You have to, you can't, as a candidate, be involved in every single thing. But me sitting on the other side of this is just like, can you really not know this for 6 months? Like, can your whole campaign, do you not take a look at your finances and just like take a cursory look at it and just make sure that everything is, coming in and out the way that you want to? And just, it took until $1 million TV ad buy that this tripped up the campaign at all? Like, that seems crazy to me.
And it wasn't completely left to nobody to check. There was some account online, like, what was it, a month ago or so, that said, I'm still looking for answers as to why there's this $100,000 loan that's not accounted for on the loan page of the report. And Dan, you and I as journalists, we have combed through these reports, meticulously. Not every report, clearly, but we do know our way around a campaign finance report. And I would have thought that, like you said, somebody would have caught something either back there in January or, even the Republican Party, the opposition combs through these reports as well. And I mean, this one we'll all look back on and go, that was weird that it slipped through this long without being caught.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to what the lieutenant governor had to say about being upfront with the numbers, saying, well, you can still trust me because look what happens here, in a crisis. I took action, but you're also going to hear a reporter interrupt her and ask about David Crowley and by extension, Missy Hughes, who, had endorsed Sara Rodriguez. Here's what she said about that.
If I find something that is wrong within the budget or the budgeting process within the state of Wisconsin, you can count on me as governor to be fully transparent about it. That is why I'm standing here today in front of you.
What do you want to say to David Crowley, who got out of the race based on a perception of your strength, based on numbers that were not true?
So I have spoken to supporters all across the state, and they are continuing to be with me. I am grateful for that. I am grateful for their support, and I know that we are going to win this August, and then we are going to win in November against Tom Tiffany.
Okay, and then she got some applause because she had supporters standing behind her, which I think was pretty smart, rather than just, looking like it's just you up against the executioner's brick wall. So she wanted to show that still there was some support out there. But Dan, I couldn't help but notice she didn't directly answer the question. What are you saying to David Crowley right now?
Man, tough one for the Milwaukee County executive, given some of the timeline here, and just the overall calamity, implosion, however you want to characterize what's happening with the Rodriguez campaign, because I have learned a little bit about this with what happened with Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. So a source close to the campaign told me that Crowley made the decision to drop out of the race on Tuesday night of last week. And so as we're talking about this timeline with the Rodriguez campaign and they're discovering this, it was, Thursday that Rodriguez said that she recognized that their cash on hand was way lower than expected. And then it was Friday morning that she held the press conference with David Crowley about his endorsement. I first reported that news at the Recombobulation area on Thursday afternoon that he would be endorsing her campaign. And so, from what I understand, he did not know about this either. Like, this was all still developing in real time. But it is has to be an especially frustrating one, because going back earlier in this campaign, Rodriguez had criticized Crowley for actions she characterized as a breakdown in leadership at the Milwaukee County Executive's office when there was this kind of mini crisis about the health insurance for county employees, which Crowley had to fire somebody. They rectified it. Nobody had an actual gap in coverage. But, it was something that really cut into his campaign as he was campaigning on a message of being the person in the race with executive experience, being the Milwaukee County executive. And then he's fielding that criticism about a breakdown in leadership. You could take a look at what happened over the past week here with Sara Rodriguez and obviously make some of the same criticisms.
Yes, but let's not pretend that Crowley and Rodriguez were running neck and neck. Crowley
Right.
really wasn't on anybody's radar. His campaign really never got off to a strong start. So it wasn't a surprise, I don't think, to anybody when he dropped out. And yeah, the timing, I get that. But I mean, it really.
Well, let's get one more clip from the lieutenant governor about this. Again, this is where she pledges transparency and says that by coming forward, that should be enough to trust her to continue on as a campaign and potentially as governor as well.
Continue to work with our compliance expert, with our accounting individuals, with the Wisconsin Ethics Commission, and we're going to follow their process to see what the next steps moving forward need to be. This is a bump in the road for the campaign, but we are going to be as honest and transparent as we can be. That is why I am standing here in front of all of you, in front of all of these cameras, in front of all of these microphones, and telling you when I see something that is an error, I make sure that it gets fixed.
All right. Now, not to pile on here, but the fact that I'm standing here in front of these cameras and microphones, that is the least you can do. you don't go hide as a result of this. Now, we can spend all day going, is that what Republicans could do? But
That's it right there. That's what we've been seeing lately is attempts to cover up things like this or spin it in some sort of a way. And to your point earlier, Pat, nobody else saw this fraud either. Republicans didn't see it. Opponents on the Democrat side didn't see it. Public watchdogs didn't see it. I think it's a little inauthentic for us to expect her as the candidate to have seen it if nobody else who was sniffing around for trouble had.
So let's look at what the folks who are running in the race had to say, who are still in the race. Now, Francesca Hong basically took the high road on this and said, look, this is why honesty and transparency is so important in a campaign. Joel Brennan was first out of the gate with 5 questions. There were actually more than that, but the last of them being, how is this not disqualifying? Meanwhile, Kelda Royce and Mandela Barnes went with the spokespeople playing the role of bad guy and issuing these blistering statements about Sara Rodriguez. And as people have been reacting to all of that, there's been the talk of, what does this mean to the Wisconsin voters who are going to be in the Democratic primary 4 weeks from now? Is this the one thing that finally sticks to them in the race, that they start tuning in, or are we all too inside and by August 11th, people will see some Sara Rodriguez ads and go, yeah, I think she could be a good governor. Dan, you've talked to people that think that she cannot recover from this.
Yeah, I've talked to people. A number of Democratic sources that I've talked to have said some very negative things about the what this portends for her campaign. And I think it's one thing, the personnel and firing issue with the campaign manager is one thing. And I think that is the type of thing that could be overcome, because yes, she acted decisively when she saw a problem. She fired the campaign manager, all of that. What she can't really do anything about, though, is magically make those hundreds of thousands of dollars that she thought she had in her campaign, make that all suddenly appear. And so if she only has $200,000 cash on hand for a race for governor, when she was being set up as the safe, stable consensus candidate, and that's kind of where she was, is in, getting these endorsements from the people who were dropping out, winning these, the state party straw poll, the county party straw poll. Like, she had a lot of momentum building to be kind of the candidate that many voters were looking for, and just like, hey, I like all of these candidates. Give me the candidate who has the best chance to win. And I think that is part of why it really undercuts her message in particular, more than it might for other candidates. But also, does this campaign have money to go up with an ad? Like, we're going to see the full picture once, the actual accurate details are eventually shared about the financials of this campaign. But if they only have $200,000 and they were planning on going up with $1 million TV buy, that's 20% of what you were planning to do. Like, and I think this is a real problem. So I'll share a couple of the things that Democratic sources had been telling me over the past 24 hours here. One source in the legislature said, quote, "This violated the trust of voters, allies, and donors. There's no path out of this mortal blow." Another source in Democratic circles said the fundraising piece of what we now know about Rodriguez's campaign is, quote, "unfathomable." Quote, "She is hundreds of thousands of dollars away from where everybody understood her campaign would be." And one more here, another Dem source said, quote, "This is close to an extinction level event for the Rodriguez campaign."
And yet, Kristin, I know one person who texted texted us, and the line was Sara looking and sounding like a governor right now, live on her Facebook, taking responsibility. I think you know the person that said that. Now, again, online, I've got one quote here from Ben Camino saying, "In the grand scheme of political scandals," he puts quotes around it, "this one feels pretty tame. I'm not voting for her in the primary, but I would vote for her in the general if she wins, and I doubt anyone will remember this." When he was then asked about, isn't this what Tiffany's going to do, is make sure the public knows about it? He responds, "Anyone who doesn't vote for her specifically for this reason was looking for a reason to vote for MAGA in November. Trump has 3 scandals like this by lunch. It's time for Democrats to stop playing games." And then there was a response to that from user Wisco J saying, "I agree. The party is skipping a big period where they should be introducing Tiffany to voters as to who he really is." And at the risk of switching topics here, but Dan mentioned, that Rodriguez, even if she wins the nomination, will not have money. Kristin, there's a whole lot of money. The state party, if they have it, they sure ain't been spending it on commercials to knock down Tiffany to this point.
I think that if she wins the primary, she'll have money. There's money for the general. The trick for her is going to be getting through the primary. But remember, the news cycle moves really, really fast. So we're going to know the actual numbers tomorrow for everybody. And that will really put things into perspective and help us know where each of these candidates stand. So that'll be a helpful data point. But by next week, all of this stuff is going to be like water under the bridge. And yeah, the Democratic insiders that Dan was quoting have strong feelings. They've been following this. They've been watching this. They're very involved. Voters still aren't there. Voters still are like, I saw something in the headline about Sara Rodriguez, but they're not paying attention the way that we are. So we've got 4 weeks until Election Day. It'll be very interesting to see how things change and whether any of these other candidates who are smelling blood in the water can use that to their advantage, particularly Joel Brennan, who has had very little presence despite having had 2 commercials already and really came out very strongly asking whether she could do this.
So what we know, the people who were already inclined not to vote for Rodriguez in the primary, the ones who were, how many of them stay with her? And for how many of them was this their Tyra Banks moment? And if you're not familiar with the Tyra Banks moment, I'll play it for you right now.
Rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? Learn something from this.
Do we have any of that?
I'm not familiar with the Tyra Banks moment.
Well, we just got to get you back in touch with America's Next Top Model.
Well, I'll be hanging out
Reality
with the
TV
supermodel
junkie Pat
tomorrow.
Kreitlow over here.
You
with,
know, really
with
not
the deep pull.
Really not, but I know my memes, and that meme's been out there a lot. Tyra going, we were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. And to find out that this person, you know, I don't want to say violated their trust, because Sara didn't do that in this instance, but Kristin, what does she lose from the supporters that she already have?
Oh, I don't know. I guess we'll see. What I saw in her Facebook comments from the press conference yesterday was it looked like some of her supporters were very much still on board. Dan had reported yesterday that the campaign had sent out some tweets recommending that supporters be loud in their support. And, you know, I think that's smart. You go to your base, you try to rally the troops and make sure people know that support is still there. So I think it's going to it will remain to be seen what her base is going to do while we are still seeing a lot of scrambling. The one thing I think is really interesting, though, is how Fran is taking the high road, because she's got such a significant lead. She's got so much momentum right now. And it is, I am betting, a position that she never thought she would be in, the way she's been running her campaign, scrappy and honest and true. And, you know, there will be consequences down the road for some of the things that she's said.
She's got her own things already. She doesn't need to pile on somebody else's things when she's got her things. Ben puts on Facebook, Barnes may now be the consensus candidate, waiting on campaign finance reports and the Marquette poll to tell. And Dan, that Marquette poll next Wednesday, I think, is when we're looking to see it.
Next Wednesday, I'll be there in person as usual and doing my full extensive breakdown on that. What timing for all of this, too. I mean, I don't think they're in the field yet for this poll or anything like that, but I think it's going to be really interesting to come right on the heels of this. And I think to me, what the central problem is for Rodriguez is that it really undercuts the central message of her campaign. Is just like the stable, competent leadership was really kind of coalescing into a core message of what she was putting out there. And I think it would be a problem for any campaign. I think this is even more of a problem for the Rodriguez campaign. And the press conference yesterday, you know, I wasn't there in person. It was held in Madison. I did not think that was a good event for her. I did not think that was... I think it was the right move to have the press conference. And I think, you know, you could say that there was perhaps some message disciplines in how she repeatedly said, I'm being transparent by being here in front of these cameras and in front of these microphones and being here and talking to you today. But she also cut off questions after a while. Like the journalists there had questions that had not yet been answered. And I thought the approach perhaps should have been kind of what Donald Trump does when he gets in front of a microphone for a press conference. Just keep talking until the press is exhausted by you. And then they're going to be able to go through all of these other questions. And like the fact that she cut off questions, I don't think she really answered nearly enough for what the situation calls for. And I just think this is a campaign that is imploding right now.
I think less of Trump than I do, say, of Hillary Clinton before the Benghazi committee. Like, I'll sit here for 11 hours if you want. Give it all to me. Let's get into the intangible end of it. And I'm going to preface this by before I break down the tone of a woman who's campaigning, rest assured, I'm going to do the same with the tone of Joel Brennan coming up as well. But Kristin, we all chatted about this offline. And what I had said was, I think that everything she did was the right base, but that on top of that, there should have been, we should have been able to experience more both the anger and the grief, because this was a trusted person. This was somebody who was almost like family. And so many times these kinds of things, embezzlement and other improprieties, happen with people that you trust like family. And I don't think she was like in any way, Al Gore robotic, but I think she should have felt okay to be a little bit more pissed and sad about what had happened, let's face it, to her.
Are you asking potentially the first female governor of the state of Wisconsin to be more emotional?
Yeah, because I'm about to do the same with Joel Brennan. So go ahead.
But
Take
it's
it for what it
different.
is.
It's different for women. And I think that we have to walk a very fine line because in a situation like this, if you show sadness or despair, you're seen as weak. So what I saw through my lens as a woman in leadership is someone who was determined, who took responsibility, who offered transparency. She did answer most of the questions that were out there, but she has always been the kind of candidate who has restraint, has boundaries. A Fran would go on forever. A Sara always is a little bit more conservative in her approach. So I appreciated her press conference. I thought she did well. And she did. She did what Donald Trump does. She repeatedly said, I am being transparent. This is the information we have. She went back to that core message over and over and over again because people need to go home with the knowledge that this is what she knows now. And she is going to continue to be honest with the people of Wisconsin.
Well,
very tricky situation.
She's certainly going to continue to be asked the questions, no matter what else it is that she wants to talk about. Wherever she goes, she's now going to have this every time, because if she were to win the nomination, Tom Tiffany is going to bring it up. There will never be a Tom Tiffany opportunity to speak during those 12 weeks of the general where this won't come up. Now,
well, let's be honest. Tom Tiffany can say anything as long as he has an old fashioned in his hand.
Yeah,
right?
he's just a good old boy, and that opens up a whole different line of argument. Now, I've already said, Dan, that I think it was wrong for both Kelda Roys and Mandela Barnes to just put out statements from their campaign managers or spokespeople. If you got something to say it. In Fran's case, it was just a statement, but it was her statement, not that of a spokesperson. Joel Brennan, while going on offense right away with all these things about Sara Rodriguez, I think also could have acknowledged that cases like this, even though yes, the buck stops with you, I would have liked to have seen a little empathy there, saying, there but for the grace of God, any one of us could have a campaign manager or a treasurer, stab us in the back and all of that. But in this day and age of politics, I don't think Joel felt that you could have that moment of empathy. It's, what do we always say? It's always stay on offense no matter what. What did you think of Joel's reaction, Dan?
I mean, I was a little bit surprised that it was so quick to react to some of it. I mean, but I think, he was also, if we're thinking back months ago in the campaign, when Sara Rodriguez had a kind of like the little mini controversy about the doing budget behind closed doors, Brennan was also quick to criticize that as well, which I found interesting that he was quick to criticize this one at the same time. But I think it's a competition, right? He's competing for a similar pool of voters that the Rodriguez campaign is. He's not competing for the Francesca Hong voters, right? I did our ranked choice voting experiment, which we're going to be publishing the results of at the Recombobulation area today. The second place voters for Francesca Hong are not drifting to Joel Brennan. Now, Joel Brennan could make the case as the stable, safe, competent executive type in the race, which is why I think it makes sense for him to be critical of Rodriguez because, look, I mean, crazier things have happened, I guess, than a candidate like Joel Brennan or Kelda Roys, who'd been polling below the top 3 in this race, making a jump. Crazier things did just happen in this race. So, we got to throw the book out on what is possible in this primary. So if Brennan is looking at an opportunity to get in the news cycle, to present himself in front of some other voters, this is a competition. This is a candidate competing in a competition.
And by the way, for what I said about Kelda just now, you did actually interview Kelda Roys.
I did, yeah. I happened to have a scheduled interview with her yesterday at 2 p.m. And so that was before the Rodriguez press conference, but after the news had broke and the fallout had begun. So she did comment on that and, just on a great many other things. She also said that she's the candidate in the race that has not made any unforced errors. To which I said, please don't jinx yourself there, Kelda.
But let's go back to Joel for a second. He is doing anything he can to get his name out there. And we're having this conversation right now because of the strong statement that he put out there. So he's got to break through in some sort of a way and fast. If that doesn't happen, he's dead in the water. We're going to see what his fundraising looks like tomorrow and over the next week or so, how his response to Sara positions him, whether he rises. If he doesn't, I don't think he's a viable candidate.
And I said that this was, clearly this is Kelda's biggest opportunity to position herself as, the alternative to Sara in that, moderate lane. She has experience. I joked online yesterday that, she's hoping to pull a Russ Feingold 1992 and go from, 10% in the polls in the three-way primary to winning with 70% as Feingold did. And I said, maybe she needs to do an ad in front of her garage door like Russ Feingold did in 1992. And immediately the Kelda Royce campaign sent me a clip of one of her ads where she's in front of her garage door, but getting on a bike to ride it. But just the same, I think she's kind of hoping to tap into something there. I don't know if she can do it, but Kristin, she'll never get a better opportunity to do so. And Sara, meanwhile, my advice to her, others might say, well, why don't you lay low for a couple of days and then we'll pretend it never existed. And mine would be, I think you need to schedule more interviews than ever before. You need blanket coverage right now. Answer all the questions, always pivot back to Tiffany and affordability and things like that. But boy, I would tell her, I know you're already working hard, but you're going to do more interviews now than you ever thought possible.
Totally agree. You're in the news cycle. Your name is out there. So capture it and turn it into an advantage. And I think that's what Kelda is doing too. I really liked her statement. I thought it was really concise. It was efficient. She brought up some really important points. Very clever. The statement I wasn't crazy about was the statement that came from the Barnes campaign, because I thought it was inauthentic. It didn't come from Mandela. And calling the mismanagement unheard of in professional politics, like, where have they been? Have they been following professional politics? Mismanagement is happening all over the place right now.
Mm-hmm. Dan, is it still anybody's race?
I think so. I like I said, crazier things have happened, and to channel Kate Duffy for in our group chat, just so she's here in spirit. Maybe we do need the eldest daughter energy of Kelda Royce in this race, right?
There are many that think so. Now, I know you don't want to reveal too much while we're talking live here, but obviously people are going to hear this recording later on. So let's close with anything else you want to tease about your ranked choice voting experiment, which was a very bold, very creative. Obviously, you're going to release much more about the results and analysis. How would you best leave us with a tease about what you think you discovered?
Well, the timing of it ended up being a little bit problematic,
yes.
I would say, because we started this a week ago on the 7th, and we were going to keep voting open for a full week. And in that full week, David Crowley dropped out of the campaign. Sara Rodriguez had this crisis. And we had, I will say, the response that I expected, and the reason we kept it open for a week, is because we wanted to get a large sample size of people who would be voting in this, and just have an opportunity to look at this race a little bit differently. Like, if we had a different voting system, how might that impact the race? And I think we learned some interesting things kind of within that. Who would be people's second choice? Some of that data that we're beginning to parse through, I do find particularly interesting. But the response from people was way more than we expected. We had the sample size that we were looking for a week in about 3 or 4 hours. And so we had well over 2,000 people who voted in this ranked choice voting experiment. Your typical Marquette poll has about 800 people sampled. So, again, this is not scientific. This is not 1,000% accurate by any stretch of the imagination. But I think you're going to learn some pretty interesting things. But I will say there is one candidate who did get way more first place votes than the other. And I think it is the candidate that we all recognize is in a pretty good position given the events of this week.
There is a real dedication, a hive, or whatever you want to call it, a base, Kristin.
Yeah, how many boomers filled out your ranked choice voting? Because I think there's a sampling error there, but I think it's important data.
Yeah,
it's important.
Yeah.
It is. And well, important, I don't know, but interesting, compelling.
Every data point is interesting. It's
Yeah.
just the degree to which you connect any given point. That can be up to interpretation. Anything else you want to cover in our Wisconsin politics group chat for this week, guys?
Can I just like sum this conversation up by saying ultimately, like, here we are. 3 weeks ago, we were saying something's got to change in this race. And here we are 3 weeks later. So let's all just take a moment and think about where we were and what's going forward and recognize that the path that we take from here, there's so much uncertainty. But ultimately, we need to elect somebody who is going to be able to lead this state. They have to be able to beat Tom Tiffany, and they have to be able to lead this state. So voters, as you are thinking about who your choice is, and so many of us are sitting here with our absentee ballots, wondering when we are going to send them in, really truly think about the future of this state and who you truly think is going to be the best governor for the state of Wisconsin.
Dan, how do we sum up what we should be looking for in the next 4 weeks?
Well, I think there's a couple like big major events that we know are going to happen. So we have tomorrow we have the deadline for the campaign finance reporting. A week from tomorrow, on the 22nd, we have the next Marquette poll. And then the following week, we have the debate. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you're looking at those three events as just kind of, those are the pillars of what we know is going to happen over the next 3 weeks. But as these last 48 hours have shown us, you got to expect the unexpected, because things can turn on a trifle and things can change absolutely much faster than we might realize in this. And so it's going to be, it's going to be discombobulating, to be sure. But luckily, I know a place to address that.
Yes, you do. If it's a day that ends in a Y, we're getting discombobulated and recombobulated in Wisconsin. Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation Area, Dr. Kristin Lyerly from the Dr. Kristin Lyerly Show, who's been talking to all these candidates and then some. So look for both of their shows. Kate Duffy, of course, at Motherhood for Good, and me over at upnorthnewswi.com. All right. In the couple of minutes that I have left here, if we can cover just quickly a couple of other topics here. I don't want to spend a lot of time, Kristin, on Ron Johnson, but coincidentally, the weirdest coincidence ever, as Sara Rodriguez's press conference was wrapping up, my phone rings and it says Ron Johnson on it. And it's a recording saying, "Hey, it's Ron Johnson. I'm having his telephone town hall. Press whatever to join." So I joined. And I gave up.
Why would you do that?
Because I wanted to hear what he was going to lead with. I only lasted until the middle of the first answer, when it was all about the COVID injections, as he put it. I won't call it a vaccine. And of course, went on to spread and spew all of the misinformation that he has. And so I just want to toss it to you long enough, Kristin, to say anything about it, because he's clearly not going to stop spreading misinformation about vaccines overall, especially with Trump in the Oval Office and RFK running HHS.
Yeah, I don't think we can expect anything different from Ron Johnson. The only solution to fixing Ron Johnson is to getting him unelected and replacing him in the U.S. Senate. He's been a conspiracy theory guy from the very beginning, so there are no surprises here. I guess my thing that I want people to know is the COVID vaccine is safe, it is effective, it is life-saving. We have real data and evidence, not conspiracy theories, but real data and evidence that shows that it works for people. It saves lives. So don't listen to Ron Johnson. Listen to doctors.
Did Ron Johnson talk at all about the committee chairmanship that he is now seeking?
I did. I didn't stay on long enough because I wanted to get the Rodriguez story written up.
Did you see what that news though at all?
No, do tell.
Yeah.
Okay. So following the sudden death of Senator Lindsey Graham.
Oh.
Ron Johnson said that he is seeking to take over the chairmanship of the Senate Budget Committee.
And people have pointed out.
Of course he is, because he's the deficit hawk.
Yes, and people have pointed out how much the national debt has grown since Ron Johnson's been in office, most of those years with Republican control of Congress. And yet people are still buying the notion that he's a hawk, which leads me to this story. With Congress, currently being short at least 2 senators, they still need to approve funding for the war in Iran, which, hey, congratulations, it's back on again, which they say restarts the 60-day window for Congress to be able to get involved. No, it doesn't work that way. But they're going to ask for an additional $70 billion for the Pentagon. Dan, all without offsets. The people that always tell you we have to have offsets if we want to give a goddamn dime to education or health or anything like that do not want to have to come up with budget offsets for the Pentagon.
The question, how are you going to pay for it, is often asked of Democrats.
Yes.
I think it needs to be asked more frequently of Republicans. Like in this sense right now. Like when Ron Johnson wants to give a massive tax carve out that is going to massively benefit his biggest donors. How's he going to pay for it? I think it is absolutely ridiculous that Republicans are at any level reflected as the party of fiscal responsibility. I mean, we had J.D. Vance here in Milwaukee last week talking about fraud and allegations of Medicaid fraud. Those were uncovered by investigative reporting of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, not by DOJ, not by any equivalent nonsense that was happening in the Wisconsin state legislature. It was by the journalists at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Like, they always take credit for something that they didn't
For the system working.
And
For the system working.
And it is the cataclysmic failure of DOJ that we should be looking to whenever Republicans are talking about waste, fraud, and abuse, whenever they're talking about budget measures like this. They had every opportunity to do something about it and failed miserably.
But it's not about the thing, the actual data, the thing that happens. It's just about the headline. And they just keep saying the headline over and over and over again. And that's why people believe it. So we have to do the same thing, but for truth, right?
Yeah. By the way, who's going to pay for it? Well, oil prices shot up again. Gas prices are about to shoot up again. And now Trump is talking about an illegal tollway in the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Don't think those costs won't get passed on. But in Donald Trump's world, the tariffs have never been passed on the consumer. So
Yeah, he was also saying that he wants to discredit the Georgia senators' elections.
Yes.
And I mean, he was saying a whole bunch of crazy, like Trumpy stuff yesterday. Like, he's completely lost his mind. But we know that, and we expect that.
yes. Back to healthcare for a second. HCA, which is the largest for-profit hospital operator in the U.S., is warning that its earnings are going to be sharply lower because apparently when Congress and Trump cut those Affordable Care Act subsidies, a whole lot of people went without health insurance, and uncompensated care is rising. Now, ACA's stock price is at 12 times earnings. Okay, their operating margin is 16%. They're not hurting, but they do carry $47 billion in debt currently. So when they say their numbers are going to be down this quarter, do you know what Wall Street's been saying about HCA? Buy. It's a great buying opportunity as the stock goes lower for a little bit. What does that say, Kristin, about we're more focused on buying the stock of a for-profit hospital operator than what the cut of those ACA subsidies has actually been doing to Americans and to healthcare providers?
Who could have seen this coming?
Who indeed? I do wonder.
The American, because it is starting to be tangible to the American people, because people are losing their healthcare coverage and they're getting sick and they're having to go to the emergency department and get care that they can't pay for, and it's continuing to cost them their financial futures. You know, healthcare, your inability to pay for healthcare already was the number one reason why people go bankrupt in this country. That is just going to balloon as these cuts continue to happen and take effect. So America, like, get ready for it. And our options are vote these people out and start fixing this fucking broken
I have
system.
options. I have options for you, as it turns out. One of them, of course, involves, what the critics would call socialism. But we have a VA system. Like Alicia says, oh, you mean the people trying to offset one set of VA benefits for the other set of VA benefits? Yeah, that's exactly those same people.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave us all with the question of the week that you can find in our weekly newsletter at upnorthnewswi.com. This is a complex one, but I'm going to rattle them off, Kristin, and I just want your quick thought. It just is what it is. What single thing would you do to fix healthcare? The options we gave were single payer, aka Medicare for all. B would be government run, much like the VA, no more for-profit entities in healthcare. C would simply be a public option, leave everything mostly as it is, but actually, provide, for example, letting Wisconsinites buy into coverage from the plan that covers state employees. D was expand the ACA subsidies. And then E was do nothing because everything's great and the market will decide what we can do. And I know a lot of people just want to say any of the above, but I said, if you really had to just go in one direction, Kristin, are you willing to go on the record and say what one direction you'd go in?
Hey, I can't because I know too much and it's too complicated. And the path forward from where we are right now is going to be a series of band-aids and turns, and it's going to be a complicated journey. And it's really easy to say like Medicare for all because it's a slogan. But what does it mean? Like Medicare is broken, and I don't know that Medicare for all is going to fix it. Single payer, what exactly does that mean? What does government owned mean? So no, I can't give you an answer, but I can tell you that we need to start on this journey to fixing it, and it is going to be really hard, and we need to lean into the experts and make sure that we are keeping the American people as our North Star.
Dan, I hate to be cynical about this, but I'm sure if you had a screen for Kelsey in front of you right now, the do nothing option would be the one getting the most bets for what will likely happen next year.
Well, I guess you're a cynic in that
Yes,
sense.
I am. I don't want to be, but again, I am a survivor of the lost battle for healthy Wisconsin back in 2007. So, we've fought our battles over all of these things, but I really want to give people who felt very strongly about one of them the option to answer and then speak up. And so I hope folks do over at upnorthnewswi.com for that. So that's where you would find our question of the week. All right, guys, I got to run, but thank you so much. I got that day job at Up North News to go do, and Dan's got a recombobulation enterprise to run, an empire. It's just crazy over there. Kristin, you have guests for a show coming up you want to tell us about?
Oh, yeah. I've got Ann Jacobs this week. We're talking about voting and
Ann
why
Jacobs
our voting system
from the Wisconsin
is
Elections
safe and
Commission.
secure. Yes. Oh, it's such a great episode. It's hard to put into clips because she's such a great guest and she explains things, but it takes a while to get there. So this is one that's really worth watching, watching the whole episode so that you walk away knowing what you can do and why our elections are safe and secure.
All right. That'll do it for this time around. I'm Pat Kreitlow, as many people have once said about me.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? Learn something from this.
I really wish I had, but here I am with my own little tiny media empire. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I will see you tomorrow for another beautiful morning up north.
Thanks, Pat.